homesteading to prepping to common horse sense, we are College Hill Farm. Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, it's the day finally. We're finally getting to plant our potatoes. Going to plant them in the morning. Now, all I do, the dogs are going to bark a little, is I take a bucket, set it here beside me. I set here on my rocker. Now, we've got 3 different types of potatoes. I've got blue Adirondacks, red Norlands, and then I've got a 50-pound bag of Kennebecks. Kennebec is a waxy potato. It's grown extensively in Appalachia. I don't know if it came from Ireland or not, but it's an Irish potato. Paul called them an arse potato. I didn't realize that with his Appalachian dialect he was calling it Irish. But that's what he meant. So I'm going to take this bag apart. Now, we lost our potatoes seed last year because I was out with my shoulder. So I had to buy seed this year. Normally, I have my own seed. And blue Adirondack is a standard with us since we moved here. We didn't grow those when we lived in Harlan County, but we do grow them since we've moved here. We like to take these and the red potatoes and the white Kennebecks, and we call them Patriot Potatoes. We do them in the microwave with butter. Oh, they're very good. And everybody likes them. It's a great dish to take, like if you're going to supper on the ground or something like that, going to a dinner. So I want to get these open. Now, there's a string here, and if you're like me, I can never figure out which string to pull. Such a pain. Now, what I did was, in order to get these were $5.99 a bag, and this is, let's see, how much is in here? I don't know if it's going to tell me. Seed potatoes. Now, I think it's 4 pounds was all it was in here, 4 pounds. So, I thought it told it. Minnesota certified, first grade. GMO free, made, grown in USA. Doesn't have a thing, but that doesn't matter. Now, like I said, these were, I think they may have actually been 5 pounds when I bought them, and they were $1, a little better than $1 a pound. Now, it's been a while since I bought these, and they've got considerable eyes. Now, all we want to do is you want to cut this potato so that you have at least 2 eyes per segment. So that you have 2 eyes per segment. There's the inside of it. It's nice and blue. This one I've got 3 eyes, and this one I've got 3 eyes. So I just put that in a bucket. I'm ready to go on to the next one. That makes two plants right there. Alright, this potato, if I'm looking at it, I can put, there's 2, and there's 2. So out of that potato, I got 3 plants. And that's the way you cut these. I cut them and just put them in a bag. Now see, this has got 2 great big long ones. I'll just leave them together because they're right together. But back here, there's 2 on that one too. So we'll see how many we get out of this 5-pound bag. That'll do a hill, and that'll do a hill. What are we up to now? Oh, see that one? That one's got stuff coming out of it. I don't want it in my garden. It was rotten. Okay, this one, cut it that way. And that gives me 2. 2 there. It looks like I'm mainly stuck with 2s. The Kennebecks will give me more. Now, if you like thinking about old-timey stuff and talking, there's another bad one. I had to keep them so long, there's going to be bad ones in there. Okay, this one looks okay. You like talking about old-timey stuff and reading about old-timey stuff, we put a blog on our website, www.collegehillfarm.com. Now, on that blog, I talk about the stuff that I did as a kid. This week's blog was about how the old-timers, another bad one, how the old-timers took care of their property. Like weeding and that kind of thing, and water spigots, and just common everyday things that you just don't hear people talk about. And I talk about them on the blog post, things that I did growing up as a kid. It's one of those things that if you don't pass that information on, people never remember it anymore. So, if you get a chance, go over and check that out. Another bad one. I kept these for about a month. I've had these over a month down in the basement. So inevitably some of them are going to go bad. That's that bag. Generally, a full bucket is 50 feet. Okay, that's all the Adirondacks. Now, if you'll look, okay, I got about 2/3 of a bucket. So a bucket generally is about 50 feet worth of potato sets. So this gave me about 2/3 of a bucket. The red New Orleans will probably give me about 2/3 of a bucket. Okay, that's 10 pounds. All right. The Kennebecks, I don't know how they're going to look when I get in them. I've had them the longest. So I'll have to just get in them and see how they are. But I'll get all these done, and then in the morning, about daylight, we'll go out and plant them. Now, the reason I cut them the night before. Now, when I was a kid, Paul, he never cut his potatoes the day before. And best practice now is considered to cut them the day before. And you cut them the day before, and what happens is, after you cut them, this cut part right here develops kind of a scab or a skin over it, and that keeps the potato from rotting in the ground. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. When I was a kid, we would go out, and Paul would, him and Ma, my grandparents, would sit under an apple tree out there near the field, and they would start cutting potatoes. We'd bring out 300 or 400 pound sacks of potatoes and set them down, and they would start cutting. And me, my dad, my brother, my mom, we'd start planting. And they would cut them and have them ready to plant as fast as we could plant them. And we'd plant 400 pounds of potatoes, potato seeds. Paul would harvest close to a ton of potatoes every year, and he sold part of them. He was a homesteader, and he drew a little pension, but mainly he raised food on his homestead and sold it, and he raised his own food. He had pigs, and he had chickens and sheep and a mule and cows, and he just had all that kind of stuff, and that was the way he got by. He was a coal miner till he was in his 50s, and when he couldn't hoss it anymore, he retired on what was called the miner's pension, which was like $75 a month back in 1970 or 68 or something like that. And then the rest of it he made on his homestead, raising plants, selling potatoes, selling produce, selling corn, selling chicken, selling eggs. Okay, so that's what he did, and we helped him. I helped him all growing up. So in the morning, these will be scabbed over. I'll have probably 4 or 5 buckets like this, enough to plant probably 4 or 5 rows of potatoes. It'll be all me and Crystal can eat. And this will give me my blue potatoes back and my red potatoes back as seed. Am I planning on getting a lot of potatoes from these? Now, these blue potatoes don't put out like the Kennebecks. The Kennebecks will be my main seed, will be my main potato for the year. They're just an awesome potato. They're my favorite potato. So I'll go ahead and get these cut up, and then I'll see you about 6 in the morning. Okay, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. It's time to get out here and plant some potatoes. Now, the red Northlands wound up giving me a whole bucket, so there were a lot more of those than there were of the blue Adirondacks. And then I wound up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buckets. 5 buckets of Kennebecks. So I got about 2/3 of a bucket of, well, let me show you the 3 potatoes. Okay, here are my 3 kinds of potatoes. This is a Kennebec. It's scabbed over nice so that it's not supposedly going to rot. I don't know that I believe that. You saw why yesterday. This is a red. This one is a red Northland. The skin is actually red, but this one's aged and it's not red anymore. It'll be red when I dig them. And then this is the blue Adirondack, and its flesh itself is blue. Plus its outer thing is blue too. So it makes a nice, we call Patriot potatoes, red, white, and blue. So I want to get these in the ground, and I'll go ahead and plant the blue Adirondacks first. And what I'll do is, since I know this is how many of those I got, this and the red Northlands might make a row. I kind of doubt it. I don't think they'll make an entire row. But my purpose for buying that little bitty bit of seed potatoes for the blue and the red potatoes is so that I could get my seed back. So next year I'll have plenty to plant a row of each. Alright, so that's where we're at. So let's get in the garden and plant some taters. Okay, here's the row I'm going to plant in. I'm going to plant in this row right here. Now, I did good this year for all the rows over this way. They're all nice and straight. All the rows on that side are a little bit boogered, so I'll do the best I can to plant as straight a row as I can, because when you plant potatoes, you want to make it a nice straight row, because if you don't, you can't hill them. But I've got quite a bit of room all the way over there. I've got all the way from there to here, so of nice straight rows. So I'll go ahead and plant all my potatoes that way. Now on this side, it's on the edge, and I like to plant stuff that you're going to access regular. Potatoes, you're not going to access them till you dig them. So they're going to be in the ground for 3 months and maybe 3.5, and you're not going to fool with them much except to keep the rows tilled and cleaned, and the hills healed up. So I like to put my potatoes in the middle section, and the crops I'm going to access, I like to put them closer to the edges anyway. So we'll go ahead and get our potatoes in the ground. Just drop them about a foot apart. Okay, I've got those dropped, about a half a row, what I figured. So I'm going to go ahead and cover them. Now, sometimes I just take my foot and kick some dirt over them. My back's bothering me this morning, and I think that kicking is going to make it hurt worse. So I'm just going to use a hoe and cover them, and I'll just cover them lightly. Normally, if it has been March and I was planting these potatoes, I would go ahead and put the hillers on my tractor, throw the potatoes in, and then just cover them with a small hill, and then let them come up through the hill. But since it's so late in the season, I want to take and cover them just a little bit, let them come up and start making potato tops, then I'll come back through and hill them. And that will help with the weed control. After it's late in the season, weed control becomes an issue. So I want to keep the weeds at bay to give the potatoes the best start. And by plowing through and hilling them after the potatoes get up, say, oh, that tall, that kills those weeds on the sides of them. Okay? Won't hurt the potatoes, but it'll kill the weeds. So let's go ahead and get these covered. Okay, that's got them covered. Now I'm going to drop the red Northlands right in that same row. So my colored potatoes, my non-white potatoes, will be in the same row. So that way when I go to harvest them, I won't be graveling around in that row getting little potatoes, because little potatoes make great seed potatoes. So I'll go ahead and get the rest of these planted and then come back to you and let you know how many rows we got. Okay, I got them all dropped. Wound up with 4 rows, 400-foot rows. I'll go ahead and get those covered. We'll talk a little. Now, my granddad used to be a stickler about dropping potatoes. He always wanted the eyes to point up. Well, see this potato? It's be hard to make it because it's cut on both sides. I'm just going to put some dirt over it, just enough to cover it. Now, this next potato here, see, it's upside down. Now, he was a stickler about dropping them. I don't worry about dropping them. When I drop them, it's just one of those things that if it turns over, when it drops down in there, I turn it back over with my hoe. Now, do I know for certain that you need to turn these over so that the eyes point up? No, I've never had an agriculture class. I've just been doing this my whole life, but this is just the way my granddad did it. It's the reason I do it. So, if any of you potato growing specialists out there with a degree say, hey, you know, it really doesn't matter, well, I'd really like to know that. Would make covering a lot easier. I know the big potato growers, they don't worry about cutting them up like this either. They just take them, a whole potato, and drop them with their tractor and then cover it with their tractor as they go by. So they don't do it that way either. They don't worry about it. But does it make a difference? You can leave it down in the comments. Okay, that's 400 feet of potatoes in the ground and covered. Now, I generally plant a little more than that. The Kennebecks will give me about 4 to 1, sometimes 5 to 1. So that 50-pound bag, somewhere between 200 and 250 pounds. The blue Adirondacks don't do nothing like that. They're maybe 2 to 1. The red Northlands, I don't know. Red Pontiacs, which is what I normally plant, is about a 3 to 1. So the Kennebecks outproduce all of them. Now, when you're dropping them, if you get them closer than a foot, your potatoes are going to be smaller, okay? So be sure to drop them at least a foot apart. I could have dropped them 18 inches and had another row, but I didn't want to do that. And I always drop them all first. When I first did it, I wanted to show you covering them, but I always drop them all first. The reason being is after you get your rows, I wanted to have an even number of rows. Not an even number, but full row. So sometimes you'll drop them and you'll have a third of a row or something left. And I'll just go back and pick up some out of the spacing, and that'll just make a wide spot, but I'll get that full row out through there. And it just gives me bigger potatoes in that area. So that's got those covered. Now, in probably 2 to 3 weeks, they'll be up pretty good, and I'll come through and plow and hoe them, then throw down some fertilizer, and then come back with the hillers when they're about, that tall, and throw up about a 6 or 8 inch hill on top of them. So that's what we'll do. I'll show you that as I do it, and then all the way to harvest. Now, if you like this stuff, this homestead and do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homestead and stuff every week, sometimes 1, sometimes 5 videos, but lately we've not been able to load every week. So we'll upload them as often as we can. Now, if you click the little bell when you come to the channel, it'll notify you when we upload a video. We upload on Sundays. So now, with that being said, it's time for me to get on to the next thing.